This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I are joined by Joe DiTullio, where we break down the best time of the year. Yes, March Madness is here, where we skip work, where we watch the games endlessly and get frustrated at the brackets that we decided to choose. And yes, we discuss every single game of the first round, second round, Sweet 16, Elite 8, and Final Four. Well, maybe not all the games, but we break down most of them, and we discuss who we think is going to win it all. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben. That's Josh. And Joe is back. It's that time of year. We have, the NFL draft. We have brackets, all these other things happening. But Josh, before we get started, go ahead and reintroduce Joe to the Baseline Podcast world and who he is and what he's doing here with us today.
Yeah, for some of our OG listeners that have been listening since day one or even for about a year, will remember Joe from last year. But Joe's a good friend of mine. We worked in the past at the Game House, and his expertise is NFL draft and March Madness discussions. So it was like perfect time of year. This is Joe. How excited are you for? I guess you're a month of just all the buzz.
Oh, I'm just bouncing off the walls, waiting for all these things to happen. I want to enjoy March Madness, but while still watching all the tape. But man, we're getting the free agency news now. We're getting trades in the NFL draft. I'm excited for it all. Any type of content's great with this stuff. I just love it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we Ben and I dropped our first mock draft last week. It's already definitely gonna be changed because of some of the free agent moves, and we also were wrong on who was gonna trade for the number one pick. We might get into some of that today, but with the release of the NCAA tournament, we wanted to bring Joe on and discuss who might be winning out of this 68 team field. I believe it is right here.
There.
I filled mine out old school, paper wise.
How you should
Joe
do it.
doesn't have access to a printer right now, but so
I would even say though, I will say this, that I feel like this time of year, it's like, it's like when it's the one time of year where you like have the excitement of so many sports happening, right? The end of NHL season, the end of the NBA season, the end of college basketball season, women's and men's, the start of baseball season, and it's different than the fall, right? The fall is more like, okay, it's exciting, but it's not like really, this is just like the best time of the year. At least I think so. I'm coaching football right now, so I'm in this football mode. So I'm kind of in this excitement. That's also, if my voice is shot, I've been yelling a lot tonight. All right, as we're recording this, and I also want to point out, I will try to get this out recorded and edited and everything before the first actual game happens. Just so y'all know. Just saying.
We'll be watching for that, Ben.
Watching for it.
We got
Let's start.
68 teams on this field, correct?
68. No,
yes.
Technically, is it? Yeah, it's 68. Yes, 68. Sorry.
Let's break this open, I guess, with just some initial thoughts on seeding. Joe, I'll ask you, is there anyone on here that you think is way too high or way too low? I've been hearing a lot of people talk about Texas A&M kind of getting screwed, finishing second in both the SEC regular season and conference tournaments, and somehow only gets a 7. Meanwhile, I see Baylor here with 10 losses, getting a 3 seeds. I haven't really believed in them all season. Any of those kind of teams you feeling the same way, or are there some others that surprise you a little bit?
Yeah, I think the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee has kind of proven that they don't really exactly know what the criteria is all the time. They don't know how to tell us what the criteria is, the whole net, the whole quad
Politics.
1 wins. Oh, absolutely. So it's what I've seen is Texas A&M has a really legitimate case that a lot of people had them as 5s in their bracketologies. I had them as a 6, but like to be 7 when I was low on them was just extreme. My alma mater, Xavier University, had a 3. I thought they should have been a 4. That could really affect things in that bracket because they got Texas in that bracket and they have Houston in that bracket. So it could be a really fun one. Kentucky being a 6, I thought with the information that Texas A&M was a 7, I think even John Calipari said this in a press conference. Like he's like, I thought we were an 8. If Texas A&M is a 7, we have to be an 8. That's just how it goes. But they're a 6. But I think they got most of the teams like seeded decently well, other than those kind of few gripes. I think they maybe have teams that are in the tournament that shouldn't be in, like Nevada, maybe Arizona State, if you prefer Oklahoma State for one of those teams. But that's going to be every year, I feel like, with this tournament.
Josh and I are so bummed because both of our teams are not in the tournament this year. And I'm so sorry, Josh. If you follow us on at baseline.podcast, you will know that I have trolled Josh tremendously the last few days on our Instagram stories. And Josh had no response, never shared it, nothing. Just took it
I
like a
just
man.
seen it. It was like, I mean, this is what I said. I thought they had to win the ACC to get in, because if they were to get any loss in that tournament, that was going to be 13 for them, and I don't think that's good enough.
Hey,
so
Ohio State almost made it. Okay, we tried our best until we ran into, I don't know, a 7'4" giant that then costed us the tournament. But I'm just saying, I'm proud of Ohio State. I've been down on them all year. I was wrong. They're not great, but they're okay. All right, so I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So
let's do this.
That's I guess some thoughts on seeding. What do we want to do here now? What do you guys have for I guess some of these key first round matchups? Just looking through the quadrants here. Ben, let's start with you. What's some games you're excited to watch this Thursday, Friday?
I'll start in the South. I'll start in the South, and we can kind of go through, I think, each of us here. But South for me is interesting because I think Alabama, and you'll see this in my bracket as we go on, I think they're the one seed that will fall the first. I think they're the first one seed to fall. There's too much drama going on with them. I personally don't think he should be playing Miller. That's just a personal opinion. I think it's every other sport. You're under investigation. Things are happening. You sit the guy out. It's courtesy. It's a way to do things, but it's Alabama. When have they ever done anything right? And then I think that's going to be interesting to see how far they go. One team that I think people need to be very careful on is Charleston. I've watched some of their highlights, and there's always these 13, 12 teams that just have this it factor. And you look at that record at 31-3, and everyone's like, yeah, but they're mid-major. Dude, I don't care. I helped coach Division II basketball at Cedarville, and it was hard to win games. I don't care who you are. To win 31 games in a year is impressive. San Diego State, I've never been high on them. I haven't been high on them all year as I've been watching different things, following their stats and everything. So those are the couple interesting on there. In the East, I think Purdue is the team in that region. I think if it all goes well, and I'll talk some more about that. But in the first round matchup, Florida Atlantic, that team is a scary team. If anybody's watched Florida Atlantic play, I never thought I would say that. I never thought I would say Florida Atlantic is a terrible team, but I think that matchup versus Memphis could be a very, very good game, exciting game. Another one in there is, believe it or not, I never thought I would say this, Providence versus Kentucky. I think this could be an interesting game because I think either Providence can win this by 10 or Kentucky could win this by 15, right? Like, I think it could go either way on this one. That's just my thing. And then in the Midwest region, which I think is a very interesting region, like Joe said, the seeding in this one is weird, and it just didn't make sense to me a little bit. I think Indiana got gypped because they're kind of in a really weird spot. But I think one of the big matchups in this one that I really want to see is I actually have Pittsburgh winning the opening round matchup. So again, the games happen before we release this. I could be totally wrong with this. But I think Pittsburgh could be a team that could cause some issues if they do win here this opening round games. I'm high on Xavier. I think Xavier has a legit shot to go pretty far. So I'm interested to see their game versus Kennesaw State. I think that's going to be interesting, because like we said, how many times we've watched it growing up, and the 14 versus 3 is always that deadly one, right? It's the sniper. It just tends to get them. And then my wife, I do have to shout out my wife here. She chose Colgate last year to go like the Elite 8 because she liked the name, thought it was a toothpaste. And she's once again went with them to go to the Sweet 16. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with Colgate. And then finally in the West, remember who's coaching Iona. I'm just going to say that right now. But Petrino is coaching Iona, and I'm telling you, if they can get past UConn, which I think that game is I personally think that is the most interesting game of the first round. That game right there. If they get past UConn, they have a nice path to a certain place. So there's that one. And then, is Gonzaga for real? Is this Gonzaga the Gonzaga that we everyone's talked about for years? That's my thing. So those are my first round kind of tidbits and things I'm interested in. As we go on, I'll kind of talk more about each one, but that's what I got. What do you got, Joe?
Yeah, I like what you said about Alabama. They had not played well up until the SEC tournament. Lots of distractions there. We'll see if that affects them in the NCAA tournament. I also agree with you on Charleston. A little preview here. I do have them winning a game in this bracket. I think they could easily win two. Really balanced team. Ryan Larson's on their team.
Very balanced.
Point guard. He used to play at Wofford, and Wofford had a couple teams in the tournament, so he's got a little bit of his feet wet in the tournament. He wasn't really a star player for them. I think Creighton and NC State could be an interesting game. NC State's resume was one of those ones that fluctuated like the last week of the season. They had at one point, I think, 2 quad one wins, and it went down to 1 quad win. And a lot of people don't think they should be in. But they have a really good point guard in Terquavion Smith. They have a really good big guy in DJ Burns, who used to play at Winthrop. That could be a really good game because Creighton was actually projected to be like a top 10 team this year. Kind of had some injuries early, and then they kind of fell apart. So I think that's a game to watch out for. I think it'd be really close and at least exciting. Moving over to the Midwest region, I'm interested in Houston in the first round. Not saying they're going to lose in the first round, but we have Marcus Sasser getting hurt, their best player getting hurt in the AAC tournament. It looks like he'll be fine. A little bit of a groin injury, so we'll see how he plays in that game. Maybe see if you want to. I don't change my bracket, but if you want to change your bracket after that game, if he doesn't look like he's going to play or doesn't look that good, that's something to watch out for. Miami and Drake will be a good game. I think these 12 seeds are really good this year. I think that's kind of a common theme here.
Is there a Drake curse? Is there like a Drake curse to Drake? Like, is there a Drake curse on Drake? That's the question. That's the question we ask.
I don't know about that, but every time I do see Drake University, all I do is think about the rapper, right?
Like that's for sure.
Yeah. They should get some sponsorship. They should get something going there.
100%.
Indiana, Kent State, I think is going to be a good game. Kent State challenged themselves, played some tough teams out of conference. They didn't beat any of those teams, but they played them close. And, as you know, non-conference schedules, a lot of times if you're the smaller team, you got to go play the bigger teams at their place. They've got a guard named Sincere Carey, I think is worth noting. He could really, I think, put up some big numbers in this tournament if he's, if he gets on a roll here. Texas A&M, Penn State, two of the teams that are pretty hot at the end there. Texas A&M made the SEC championship game. Penn State made the Big Ten championship game. Jaden Pickett, really good player for Penn State. We'll see how that turns out because that honestly, both these teams could be higher. I think Penn State could be an 8 seed. I think Texas A&M could be a 5 seed. Moving on to the West region, Arkansas, Illinois is a really good game. Illinois is projected to be better than this. They lost one of their recruits to the transfer portal already. Arkansas has projected lottery picks. If they put it all together, they could be really good. They could challenge Kansas in the second round, possibly. We just haven't seen it all the way yet. And then I'm not really too high on any of the other upsets in this region or any other teams in this region. Kansas, we're going to see how Bill Self comes back. He was in the hospital during the Big 12 tournament, but I think he has his team in a good spot here if they can get past that second round matchup against Arkansas and Illinois. In the East region, I really don't like this region in terms of teams. It's really good in terms of like history. You got Duke, you got Michigan State, you got Kentucky in this region. But I actually really struggled. I don't know about you guys, but I really struggled with this region specifically picking a team in the Final Four. I like what you said about FAU, Ben. I also like Oral Roberts. They're probably the best 12 seed. People remember them.
I don't like Oral Roberts. I don't like them.
I wonder why. But they're better than that 15 seed that went to the Sweet 16 by a lot. Max Asmus is still there. I think they have a chance against Duke.
He's still there? Like what has he got, like 25 years under his goodness gracious.
It feels like forever ago, but I think he's a 5th year senior with the COVID year.
Something like that. 7th year.
Yeah, but I don't know. Those are the two teams that really stuck out to me as Oral Roberts and FAU. Full disclosure, I didn't pick them to the Final Four, but I just that bracket was really tough for me because I feel like it's a lot of teams that I was like wouldn't have thought to put in the Final Four. Put it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I like you said, Joe. I think like 5 years ago, if I was looking at this region, I'd be like, this is the toughest one to pick, but for different reasons because this would normally be a very loaded region right here. I'll go through mine now, guys. Matchups that I'm looking forward to watching. In the South, I'm looking forward to Virginia and Furman. Now, I heard that Furman last year lost on a buzzer beater in their conference tournament, which effectively eliminated them from getting to the tournament. This year, they're facing Virginia. I know Virginia plays a slower style, so this could be like just a grit fest, but I feel like Furman might be bringing some extra motivation and energy. I mean, all these lower seeds are doing that, but they could catch Virginia sleeping. I mean, they've been a 1 before and lost to a 16, so I'm circling that game in that region. Over in the East region, I mean, there's a lot of them that you can look at right here. I think Joe talked about Kentucky Providence already, but I'm looking at Oral Roberts and Duke as well. Oral Roberts is one of those teams that can just shoot the lights out. They've upset teams before in the past. And I know Duke's solid here with a 26-8 record. First year head coach John Shire. I just feel like that could maybe a lack of experience there in coaching in the tournament could maybe lead to an Oral Roberts win here. Let's see, over in the Midwest, what do I like here? I also have Pitt winning that playing game, and I'm excited to see, I guess, that Iowa State matchup right there, how that could kind of pan out. And then down in the West, I mean, we talked about Iona UConn. I think that one's interesting just with the experience that Rick Pitino has coaching over there. I think that the Arkansas Auburn game could be interesting as well. Arkansas was a team I was hearing a lot of hype for early in the season about possibly being a Final Four team. Like Joe said, I think they got some possible lottery picks on that team. Auburn's been kind of an inconsistent team this year. All right, wait. I said Auburn. It's not Auburn. It's Illinois. My bad. Y'all should have corrected me. What are you doing over here?
I'm just letting you go, man. Just let him go, you know.
Not Auburn, Illinois. But yeah, shoot, you already got a guy in the portal already. You said, right, Joe?
Yeah, he averaged 7 points a game and he left in January. But yeah, it's not always good to have a person in the portal when you're already playing for a championship, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, if Arkansas can, I guess, put it together here, that could be an exciting matchup. But I mean, dang, I think we've covered them pretty good, guys. I don't really have anything much to add other than what you've already said.
Yeah, I think what'll be cool is like we're not gonna go into detail of like each matchup, but let's just go through our picks so that way everyone kind of knows where we're at. Like the upset. So like we won't have to go into detail so we don't bore everyone out there because we know like my mom's watching. I don't want to bore my mom as she's listening. You know, she's probably gonna win the family bracket challenge this year. I don't know. So let's go ahead and we'll go south, we'll go east, then Midwest and west. So Joe, why don't you start? You go ahead through your first round, who's winning and moving on, and then we'll go to Josh going to his south, and then I'll do my south, and then we'll keep going around. So Joe, go ahead and start.
You got it. All right. Alabama will be picked to win their first round matchup when they're going to be playing one of the 16 seeds who are in the playing game. That's pretty easy. Maryland, West Virginia, a little bit of a rivalry game here. I'm going with Maryland. West Virginia is a fun team, but I really don't think they have as much substance. They were battle tested in the Big 12, but I'll go Maryland with that first round matchup. Going with Charleston, going with the Cougars there. Pat Kelsey's done a great job. Like I said, balanced team. They have a lot of guys who I think control the pace of the game and can also handle the pressure playing in the tournament. Have Virginia over Furman. That defense is tough still. You know, the offense does scare me. I'm not taking them to go to a Final Four or anything, but I think they can win one game. I do have Creighton in the first round matchup against NC State. It's going to take a lot of, I think, good play from Ryan Nembhard, their point guard. When he's great, he's great. Sometimes he has bad games and Creighton suffers. I'm going to go Baylor in the 3-14 matchup. Don't think UCSB has quite enough firepower to beat Baylor. And then I'll go Missouri to win the 7-10 matchup. Really a team that gets up and down the court. And I think they can beat Utah State, who's just snuck into the tournament, snuck out of the play-in games there at the 10 seed. And then Arizona to beat Princeton.
Ooh, I like it. Josh, what do you got?
A lot of the same thoughts here. I got Bama winning, Maryland winning. I do have San Diego State, but I went with Furman over Virginia. Also threw in the NC State upset here as well. I've been hearing a lot of buzz about NC State being a dark horse, and I guess I'm going to buy the hype since I don't know enough about their team to refute that. Baylor winning as well. The Mizzou-Utah State game I thought a lot about. Missouri's battle tested out of SEC. Utah State could shoot the three pretty good, but ended up going with Mizzou anyways. And then Arizona is always a tough one for me, guys. They always seem to come into the tournament hyped up as a top 3 seed, and they lose one of their first or second games. Princeton. For now, I got them winning at least one game.
Oh, there you go. There you go. And for Ben over here, I got Bama winning that 116 matchup. Now, if Miller does not play, then, you never know. But no, I got Bama winning the first one. I have Maryland. I agree with Joe. I think Maryland, they play in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten is a rough conference. It's just a physical conference. So I'm going to go Maryland. I'm gonna go Charleston. I hyped him up. Like if I didn't choose them, I just feel like I'd be terrible. So no,
That's what
Charleston.
I was thinking too.
Yeah, Charleston is I think just a team that can do a lot of damage if they play the right game. And I have Virginia. I think Virginia's defense could push them pretty far in this tournament. And so I got Virginia. NC State, I'm with Josh here. I think the upset is very realistic, and I think it will happen. NC State is kind of in that driver's seat, I think, because Creighton, you never know with Creighton. I feel it's the same thing. It's like Gonzaga thing, right? Like you always think, oh, they're going to make the Sweet 16, Elite Eight, and then they just kind of just fizzle out. So for me, I got there. I have Baylor winning. Maybe they'll go back to their glory days. I don't know. Then I have Missouri winning that next matchup, and then Arizona. I do agree, though. I was very tempted to do Princeton. I was very tempted to choose someone from the Ivy League, but I didn't. So Arizona. That's what I got. I think we all are pretty much on the same page. So, no, we'll start with Josh this time. So, Josh, start with your East bracket there.
East bracket, Purdue, nothing really to talk about there. 1 versus 16. Memphis, Florida Atlantic. I've heard you guys talk really highly of Florida Atlantic. I think Penny and the boys can get it done though in that one, but that's going to be a really good 8 versus 9. I'm going Oral Roberts over Duke. If North Carolina can't win any games in the NCAA tournament, neither can Duke. Tennessee, we're going to be talking about Tennessee a lot. At least I will be, but I think they're going to kick off a really solid tournament run here. They bring a lot of great defensive play. I think that's going to be really clutch this tournament. I thought a lot about Kentucky Providence, flipped a coin and it went Kentucky. So there you go. Kansas State, I got winning against Montana State. Michigan State, USC, I could see that going either way. Rolled with USC, getting the edge there. And then I got Marquette over Vermont. It's tough to it doesn't happen all the time. Every now and then you get a 15 that can beat a 2, but I don't want to
You don't believe in Bernie Sanders?
Pick the wrong I don't want to pick the wrong 15, so
you don't believe in Bernie? Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, anyways. No, I'll go with this. Purdue, for me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you have 7'4". You just can't mess with it. FAU, Florida Atlantic. I mean, like I said, again, another team I hyped up. I feel like if I don't pick them, I'm just doing the wrong. But I believe in FAU. I've seen what they've done. I think they can give a team trouble. The issue is I don't know how they can match up when they go against big teams. And that's the interesting thing that we'll see. I'm choosing Duke. Like, this wasn't even a question for me. I think Duke has the players to do it. They've shown they can do it. Again, the first-year head coach did worry me a little bit, but I also just hate Oral Roberts. So it's just not even a question for me. And then Tennessee, I have Tennessee winning. Again, I'm pretty high on Tennessee. I think they're going to do what they need to do to get the job done. And I think what I want to remind people too is that, hey, you don't have to win by big. It's not about style anymore. It's just getting the win. So, and then I have Kentucky. I think they're going to beat Providence. My wife had Providence, which I thought was interesting, but I have Kentucky, and then Kansas State. Remember Kansas State. I'm just saying that right now. Remember Kansas State. They've shocked a lot of people in football this year, and they've shocked a lot of people in basketball this year. It's changing over there in Kansas State. And then I have USC. Michigan State has crumbled a lot at the end of the season, and I just don't think they have enough juice to get them past USC. And I have Marquette winning that 2-15 matchup. Joe?
Yeah, Purdue, pretty obviously. There's no 16 seed out there with a 7'4" guy like Zach Edey. It's not going to happen. I'm going Memphis. I talked up FAU, but Memphis, Kendrick Davis scores about 21 points a game. He had a really good AAC tournament, helped them beat Houston in the AAC tournament final. I think
they did win that conference tournament. Yeah,
I think Penny's done a great job with this team. I think he's gotten a lot of slack, and rightfully so, in past years for having a bunch of highly rated recruits and not panning out. But getting this specific team to an 8 seed, I think is kind of impressive. I'm going Duke over Oral Roberts. This one, I think I would have gone it differently if it was 2 weeks ago, but I think Duke really showed out in the ACC tournament and at the end of the season. I think John Shire's done a really good job of getting those guys focused and kind of bringing the team together after they started the year with injuries. I have Louisiana over Tennessee. Wow. Tennessee's best perimeter defender, maybe the best perimeter defender in the country, Zakai Ziegler's out for the season with a torn ACL. Tennessee struggles to score. And this is more about Tennessee and that injury and maybe their offensive struggles than about Louisiana with this pick here. But I can't really see them, even if they win one game, I can't really see them going far. So I felt like this might be a good spot to put a little upset in there, a little flavor. Kentucky Providence was really tough for me. One of Kentucky's players last year, Bryce Hopkins, transferred to Providence, so it's a revenge game here. That if Kentucky loses this, John Calipari is getting fired. A little bit of pressure here, I'm pretty sure. It's just you can't lose to a guy who transfers out after last year losing to St. Peter's, right? So I'm going Kentucky, but I think it'll be really close, and I think it'll have some emotion there. So we'll see what comes to that. Really big on Kansas State as well, Ben. I think Kansas State's a really good team. They got Keontae Johnson from Florida transferring in. They got Desi Sills from Arkansas transferring in this year, and they've really panned out. Michigan State for me, basically a coin flip here for Michigan State USC. I'll take Izzo if we're going to have a little 50-50 debate there, even though they really haven't been the same Michigan State team over the last several years. And then Marquette, I don't think Vermont's really got it with them.
It's Bernie. That's what it is. It's because of Bernie. I just had to get my political joke in for the day. So let's start with the Midwest. Obviously, this is the weirdest for me. The seeding in this region to me just like is very tough because you have Indiana, who has probably one of the second best player in the Big Ten, even though he's probably one of the best players in the country. And then you have a lot of these other teams that I think are very good as well. I got Houston. I think Houston had a fluke against Memphis. I don't think they're that bad, or I think they're better than Memphis by far. I just think they dealt with an injury. They dealt with some other things. I think there's just a lot going on there. So I have Houston winning. I have Auburn beating Iowa. I saw Iowa lose to Ohio State. Okay, I just pointing this out. This was a 15-win Ohio State team and a very struggling without their two best players Ohio State team, and they lost. So how are they going to beat Auburn? I don't know. So I'm going to go Auburn here. I got Miami over Drake. The Drake curse is still alive. I was struggling here. I really wanted to go Kent State here. I was very close, but I just think Indiana has too much talent. And I think it's going to be that's the last straw, I think, for Kent State. I think Kent State just won't have that extra it factor that Indiana has. So I'm going to go Indiana here. I have Pittsburgh. Winning the opening game, then beating Iowa State, and now going on to the second round. I like Pittsburgh. I've watched them. One of my friends here in Hungary, he's grew up a Pittsburgh fan, and he's super excited. And I think they're going to be great. I have Xavier beating Kennesaw State pretty easily. And then I have Penn State. They are on a run that I have not seen Penn State ever be on. And so I got to give hats off to them. And then I have Texas winning against Colgate. Sorry, babe. Colgate's not, it's Colgate that's winning. Sorry. But anyways, Joe, what do you got here for the Midwest?
Yeah, Houston winning the first game. Interested to watch it just to see how they play. If Marcus Sasser can play, if he can't play, that'll be just something to watch, even if it's going to be a blowout. Auburn over Iowa, kind of like you said. Iowa, Ohio State did not go that well for Iowa. So I'm going to go Auburn. They've had their issues too, but Wendell Green's a really good point guard. I think he can figure things out to win that first round game. Miami has a really good player in Isaiah Wong. He's could have gone to the NBA last couple of years, decided to come back. So maybe some of the NIL money kind of persuaded him, but he came back and they tied for the ACC this year for the regular season championship. I think they can beat Drake, even though I think Drake's a solid team. I did end up going Kent State with the upset. I've been impressed with what I saw early in the season. Like I said, Sincere Carey maybe didn't have the best games against great competition early in the year. I think he's going to make up for that with this tournament, and I think he could lead them to a win. Indiana, Xavier Johnson, who was on their team last year when they were in the tournament, he's out for the season. He was hurt in January, so they've dealt without him. But I think in a tournament like this, maybe not having as much depth can really hurt you. I have Iowa State over the play-in winner. I'm not really confident with Iowa State. I'm not confident with any of these teams. So if you have a preference for Pittsburgh, like Ben said, or Mississippi State, go with it. Mississippi State's probably the team I'd least pick just because they can't shoot threes. They're the worst three-point shooting team in the country. But I'll go Iowa State. Xavier to beat Kennesaw State. Xavier's offense is great. Their defense, not so much. It's gotten better. Their lack of depth concerns me, but they can beat Kennesaw State. Texas A&M was snubbed out of the tournament last year, went pretty far in the NIT. I think they lost in the finals to Xavier, actually. And then this year got snubbed on seeding. I think they're going to want to maybe play well this tournament. They've got some pretty good defensive players. And Penn State, I think that's the game of the first round, honestly. I think that's just two really good teams. Good. Yeah. But I'll take Texas A&M and then Texas to beat Colgate.
Josh.
Right. Yeah. Houston winning the first one. I don't think they're going to have any issues there. I'm going Auburn over Iowa as well. Just like you guys said, Iowa's been having some struggles here late. Auburn, while it's been inconsistent, I think they can at least get one win here. The U kind of is a dark horse in this region to me. I think they're a little low at 5. I think they can come out and do some damage, and they're going to start off with a win over Drake. I'll roll with IU. You guys make really good cases for Kent State, but I think Trace Jackson Davis is good enough for at least one win. Really good player. I'm putting in Pitt too. I hate putting in like the playing games because then you
screws you over.
It's like, well, what if Mississippi State wins this and then beats Iowa State? And it's like I was half right that Iowa State wasn't going to be the winner, but so this is one of the only times I'll ever do that. I think Pitt's just a pretty good enough team. Got Xavier, like Joe said, the offense is on fire. They can bang threes from all over the place. Texas A&M, I got over Penn State. I think there's definitely a chip on their shoulder there. They're at least going to get one win here, and they might even get another one. Depending on how. I'm not kidding, dude. Not kidding. Texas, I think they're just going to I think they're going to manhandle Colgate, dude. I mean, Colgate's got a similar identity to last year. They're the best 3-point shooting team in the country, but Texas just has, I think, too much size that's going to overpower them. Colgate better be shooting 60% from 3 if they're going to win this game.
You know, they would say that with Colgate, they're going to be shooting with fresh breath. Sorry, that was bad. That was so bad. Anyways, we're going to move on from that. Joe, West bracket, go.
Yeah, Kansas, obviously another game to watch. If it's on, you can see if Bill Self's like healthy on the sideline, see if anything's affected there. But they're going to win that first round game against Howard. Going to Arkansas, I'm going with the talent here. I think Illinois arguably maybe more battle tested, but Arkansas with that talent, with Nick Smith, one of their best players, being out for a while, one of the lottery picks being out for a while. I think him being back helps them. I think they can get a win. And Eric Musselman's been pretty good in March over his career. Going to go St. Mary's. The metrics will tell you they're a better team than a 5 seed. It's just tough when you play in the WCC and you don't get the notoriety. All you really play is Gonzaga, and even Gonzaga had a down year by their standards, at least the last couple of years this season. But I think they can beat VCU. I think it'll be another interesting game, one of the best games of the first round of games. Then I'm going UConn over Iona. It will be a good coaching matchup between Rick Pitino and Danny Hurley. But UConn's metrics are through the roof. They're a team that, if you look at the metrics, they can win the national title. I don't really believe in them that much whatsoever, but I think they can beat Iona. Iona's had like a down year for Rick Pitino standards. Like usually they're like a 12 seed, and usually like they're beating some of these powers in the non-conference. They didn't really do that this year. Going TCU over Arizona State and Nevada. I don't think either of those teams should be in the tournament. Maybe Arizona State you can make a case for, but I'll take TCU. They do have their center is in the transfer portal. He had a disagreement with Jamie Dixon, so we'll see if that maybe affects their mental state in this game, but I'll go TCU. Gonzaga over Grand Canyon. Not much to say there. Gonzaga is going to, I think, just blow them out. Northwestern over Boise State.
Correct move.
Really, really impressed with Northwestern this year. They lost 2 of their best players, one to Duke, one to North Carolina this offseason in the transfer portal. Put it all together. Boo Buie is one of the most fun names in the tournament. You got to watch their best player. And Boise State, the Mountain West, I think, has won like one game in the tournament over the last 5 years or so. So just I'm not really sold on any of the Mountain West teams, as evidenced by I picked against San Diego State with Charleston already. But Northwestern, I think, can get the win. And then UCLA over UNC Asheville.
Love it. Josh, go.
So Kansas is probably the team that I've seen the most. I've watched a whopping 2 Kansas games this year. I like what I saw enough to pick them over a 16 seed. Arkansas, also love the talent here, as Joe said. I think that'll get them the 1 win here. The VCU St. Mary's one, it's tough because I mean it's 2 small conference teams. I'm gonna give the edge to VCU in this one. Pick an upset. I'll also rock with Iona over UConn too. One of the best coaching matchups we're going to see here. But one of these 2, I think, is going to win. So either VC or Iona, I just put them both down so I could have at least one right. TCU, Big 12 is one of the best conferences in this, I think, in basketball this year. I had a lot of teams advancing. Initially, I had to do some revisions because I was just like, okay, well, I don't love the Big 12 that much. TCU's one of these wins, though. Zags here. I think they can take on Grand Canyon. Then I got Northwestern defeating Boise State. Really underrated team coming out of the Big Ten. And then UCLA, dude. Watch out for UCLA this whole tournament, man. Veteran guards, solid defensive play. Usually that's a pretty solid recipe to make at least a run to the Final Four.
It is interesting. And I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here. I don't really have any interesting things in here But I have Kansas beating Howard because just no brainer. I do have Illinois though winning, and this is my reasoning, because if Arkansas has not figured out now, how are they going to figure it out during the tournament? They haven't figured out how to play the talent team now with all the talent they have. They should be rolling through a lot of these teams. Then why now are they going to have it figured out? That's my old school mentality, right? Not the matrix, not the metrics, not any of the crazy numbers. Just looking at like, hey, you have talent and you've lost 13 games. And yes, Illinois might not be the most talented. Yes, Illinois might not be the most tested, but if you haven't figured it out now, when are you going to start? So that's why I have Illinois there winning that game. I have St. Mary's. I've always see like St. Mary's as a one-win team, and here they are winning one game. So they won one game. And then I have Iona. I believe in Rick Pitino. I've always said he's one of the best coaches. He obviously misfortune of what happened, at his last stop. But it's Iona just seems to be that team. And again, UConn, I saw the same things, Joe, but it's just for me, I feel like this is the right time for like a Rick Pitino. He's in talks with St. John's, I believe. It's the perfect time for him to get this run it a few, rounds, and then head off in the sunset or whatever. I do have TCU here winning. I think the center situation does scare me a little bit. But again, I'm interested to see what happens with this whole thing. And I'm just going to say, keep an eye on TCU. That's all I'm going to say. And then I have Gonzaga beating Grand Canyon. And then Northwestern, I'm very high on Northwestern beating Boise State pretty easily. And then UCLA winning their game. So that is the 4 regions wrapped up. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to just, once again, go briefly through. And then when we get to the Final Four, we're going to kind of give a reasoning why we chose these 4 teams for a Final Four. So let's go. Josh, go ahead and give your breakdown for the South region of the second round games that you've picked. Again, this is not actually happening. It's what we've picked. So just so everyone knows. Go ahead, Josh.
So out of the South, the teams that I got making the Sweet 16, I do have Bama. I'm rolling with Furman to get at least this far.
Ooh.
They're kind of like that Cinderella team, I guess, that I have. At least it's the lowest seed I got going the furthest, basically. I'm right behind them though. NC State also making an appearance in the Sweet 16.
Wow.
And I didn't want to do it, but I already picked those 2, and I was like, there's not going to be another low seed making it to the Sweet 16. So I'm sticking with Arizona for now. This offense this year looks really legit, really strong, and maybe it'll be a different year for Arizona. I don't know, but that's those are the Sweet 16 that I got there. So those matchups lead to Bama playing Furman. I think Bama's winning that one. Then NC State versus Arizona. I'm rolling with Arizona, and Bama coming out of that region as the Final Four representative once it's all said and done.
Interesting.
I think I'm the highest one on Alabama, guys. You guys brought up a lot of valid points, but even with all that, it seems like Alabama's just kind of ignored the noise. Brandon Miller's been playing at a pretty elite clip, looking like he could be one of the top picks in the draft, and I don't think that that's going to slow down anytime soon. Plus, the way that I got it laid out, at least, it's like they got to play a 16 seed, then they got to play a 8 seed, then they got to play a 13 seed, and then they play the 2 seed for their first real test. So I think they're going to have a pretty chill ride, at least I'm predicting up to this point. And then once they finally get that real game against Arizona, I think that's when Arizona's magic's probably going to run out too.
Interesting. For me in the South, I have in that first matchup, I do have Bama winning that next matchup against Maryland. I just think they're going to overpower them. I don't think Maryland has the extra it factor. I was very tempted to take Charleston. I was so tempted. Kind of the Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia, that whole thing. Oh no, is it Charleston, South Carolina? I can't remember. Is it Charleston, South Carolina, where they're from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, South Carolina. Sorry, that would have been bad.
There's a lot of Charlestons though.
Yeah, there is. But I know I'm taking Virginia. I think Virginia's defense, again, I trust in the defense, right? What wins you championships? Playing defense. So I think Virginia here. I do have Baylor beating NC State. I think just Baylor overall, Big 12 is a good conference. We've talked about it. I think they're going to have a little bit more than NC State. I don't think NC State can get any farther than where they're at. Then I have Arizona. I believe in Arizona this year, and Arizona is going to beat Missouri. And then I have Virginia upsetting Alabama in the Sweet 16 to take that defense to the Elite Eight. And I have Arizona beating Baylor to go to the Elite Eight. And then I have Arizona upsetting, not really upsetting, but Arizona beating Virginia. I think that's when Virginia's kind of the offense not being good enough will finally catch up with them. And I think Arizona will take it to the Final Four out of the South region.
All right. Well, I have Alabama beating Maryland second round. Too talented to lose the first weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'll be wrong, but we'll see what happens with that one. I just don't think Maryland matches up well. I have Virginia beating Charleston. Wanted to go Charleston too, because I do think Virginia not being able to score, it creates this matchup where if Charleston really can just get a couple threes to not get knocked down, I thought about it, but that defense is tough. So if some ACC teams struggle to score, Charleston might struggle to score too. I have Creighton over Baylor. Baylor's defense has not been good this year, and I don't think that gets fixed in the tournament. This really scares me, though, because Creighton, as mentioned, they've had to come a long way. They were injured early in the year, had to come a long way to get here. They're probably still could have played even better, and it scares me because I do think NC State has a chance to beat them in the first round. But I had to pick someone, and I really don't like any of their teams out of that four pod there. I have Arizona beating Missouri. Missouri will give them a test because they can get up and down the court, but I think Arizona's two highly skilled big guys I think really can make them win that game. Have Alabama beating Virginia. Just too much. Alabama's good at defense in their own right, and I think they can beat Virginia with them not being able to score the ball. And also, one of their reserve big guys just broke his hand. He's out for the season. That could, depth just means something.
Fun fact, by the way, played at Ohio. That guy played at Ohio, and his sister played at Cedarville, where Josh and I graduated. Fun fact. This is just a fun little tidbits for you. Tidbits from Ben. That's what we're calling this. I'm kidding.
His name's Ben Vanderplas, and he went to Ohio. His dad was teammates with Tony Bennett. That's why he transferred from Ohio to Virginia. Yeah. And then Arizona to beat Creighton. I didn't really believe in Creighton and just didn't really like that pod. So I'll go with Arizona, even though I'm not the highest on Arizona either. And I'll go Alabama out of this region too. Like I said, their defense is good. Brandon Miller is the best player in the country, or best freshman in the country. I think Zach Edey might be the best player in the country, but he's the best freshman in the country, the guy who can create his own shot. And I do think there needs to be some hesitation, maybe to making the Final Four, because I had to think about it. It's just the bracket filled out that way that I wanted Alabama to be the team out of that region, but they have the Brandon Miller situation. They are a team that shoots a ton of threes, and we've seen in the NCAA tournament, if a team goes cold for one game, a lot of times they'll struggle. And also, they're a team that seems like they always look for Brandon Miller to get him out of these tough spots. And he's a freshman still. He's a really good player, but he's a freshman still. So that could be something to watch down the stretch. But I do think they're the best team in the country, and I'll have them go to the Final Four because of that.
Interesting. I will lead the let's go East, because it's one of my favorite ones to talk about, because I think it's the most interesting. At least I do. I mean, no one else does, but I got Purdue beating FAU, and I think this could be a blowout because I don't think FAU has anyone that can stick with Zach Edey. I think Zach Edey, when he's on point, he is literally unstoppable. I don't know if you watched him against Ohio State. Ohio State, we're bouncing off the man. I mean, he's like a truck. I mean, he just goes through everyone. I have Purdue winning that game pretty easily. I have Duke beating Tennessee. Again, I don't know what it is about Duke this year. I'm sorry, Josh, but it feels like a Duke year, and I don't know why, but it just feels like a Duke year. And then I have Kansas State beating Kentucky. I don't think to be honest, I think Kansas State could win by double digits. I don't believe it. I think this Calipari's last year, no matter what. I think this is going to be like the mutual ways type thing. But Kansas State, I think, wins here. And then I have USC losing to Marquette. I think Marquette just is a little bit more talented than USC, and we'll give Marquette the advantage there. And then I have Purdue beating Duke, though. I don't think Duke has. The one thing I am worried about Purdue is if they get in foul trouble with Edey, is who's the next guy up, right? But if he's not in foul trouble, I don't think Duke has the guys necessarily to keep up with him and the shooters that Purdue also has and the freshmen that Purdue also has. So I really love Purdue. So I think Purdue beating Duke. And I have Kansas State upsetting Marquette. Not really an upset, but beating Marquette. And then I have Purdue beating Kansas State going to the Final Four. So I have Purdue going to the Final Four from the East. Joe, what do you got in the East?
I have Purdue beating Memphis in their second round matchup. I think Zach Edey is just too much in that matchup for anyone that Memphis has. I'll go Duke over Louisiana. I had Louisiana winning the first round game. That makes it a little bit easier for Duke, but I'm along the same thought process. I'm not a Duke fan by any stretch of the means, but they've just been playing good basketball. I'll have to give it to them here against Louisiana. That could be a tough matchup, but I think Duke wins. Kansas State over Kentucky. It pains me to say this as a Kentucky fan, but it's not the year. It's not the year. It really isn't. A lot of things have gone wrong. Injuries. I don't think there's a chance that they win more than one game. I've said it for a couple months now. I just think they win one game and are out. Thought the expectations would be higher, but a lot of teams are finding out if you put Oscar Tshiebwe in ball screen actions and you'll make him defend ball screens, his defensive IQ isn't the greatest, and he doesn't have the foot speed to cover up for that low defensive IQ in these situations. So Kansas State with their guards, Marcus Knoll, he'll be running pick and roll like all day. So it's gonna be a tough matchup in that second round. So I'll go Kansas State. I'm going to go Marquette. I thought about an upset here, but because Marquette's defense it's not as good as like most of these national title contenders. I think they're ranked 47th in Ken Palm, but I think they can beat Michigan State. I'll go Duke over Purdue. Reason being, I really like Zach Edey, but we saw in the Big Ten tournament that if Purdue is pressured, they turn over the ball a lot, and they almost blew some of those games in the tournament. A team really hasn't done that for a full game. I'd be interested to see if one of these teams who wants to play them in the first weekend maybe tries this and tries to pressure them more of the game. But that would be, they have two freshman guards starting, and that really puts, I think, a lot on those freshman guards who look to seem like they wore down as the season went on. So,
Purdue might be a few seasons. I mean, if you give these guys 2 seasons, I think Purdue could be very scary if these guards get a chance to develop. I think it would be very scary.
I agree with you. They did really good for freshmen, just that the pressure got to them. I think they need a veteran guard to kind of help them with that. Yeah. They got some guys on the bench, but not too many minutes. And then I'll go Kansas State over Marquette. As I mentioned, the defense kind of scares me. Kansas State has a couple of guys who can fill it up between Marcus Knoll, Keontae Johnson, Desi Sills. I kind of like them all. And then Kansas State versus Duke in the Elite Eight. I'll go Kansas State to win that. Again, I really didn't like this region in terms of picking a Final Four team. Kansas State, I think, really cool story. Keontae Johnson coming back from that heart issue. I think it was right after COVID, and people were kind of scared about it. But he came back. He had to transfer from Florida and went to Kansas State. Now he's showing why he was the SEC Player of the Year before he had that heart issue. And I don't know. The Big 12 was good this year. I don't know. I didn't know how to pick. I really, as someone who watches all the basketball and college basketball and all that, I hate my bracket. This is part of the reason why I have Kansas State in the Final Four. Even though I like them, I don't know if their Final Four are good.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Man, this is a messy one for me too now, and I'm starting to second guess some of these.
Don't change it, Josh.
I'm not changing anything. I'm going to tell you what I have written down here, and I'll tell you which ones I'm second guessing when I'm done. So, in the Sweet 16, I have Memphis because they've beaten Purdue. I think, like Joe said, if you can get Purdue turn the ball over, or if Zach Edey even gets into foul trouble, they don't have a reliable second option.
Oh, wow.
Memphis has a solid point guard with Kendrick Wilson. They got veteran big men on this team. I think that if the right circumstances fall, this could potentially be an upset. But at the same time, I feel like Purdue is one of those teams not a lot of people are really talking about coming into the tournament because of those 3 losses I think they had in 5 games middle of the season. So people kind of have written them off. Maybe I am too. But for now, I got Memphis as an upset. That's not one of the games I'm second guessing. It's later on. For now, I got Tennessee versus Oral Roberts. So I got Tennessee winning that game. I'm not going to pick Oral Roberts to go too far. It's just more so not picking Duke to go very far. So I kicked him out of the tournament early. Kansas State, definitely a dark horse in this one. I'd say watch out. Whether it's Kentucky or Providence, I think they're winning this game. I got Kentucky and as their opponent there. Marquette versus USC. I think Marquette's strong enough offensively. They're going to get past that one. So moving back here, we got a Memphis-Tennessee matchup now. And spoiler alert, Tennessee is my Final Four team out of this region. But after what Joe told me about those injuries, I'm just like, well, that totally affects their defensive play, which I really liked and had him going this far to begin with. So that's one I'll have to think more about. Tennessee beating Memphis and then eventually defeating Marquette, who defeated Kansas State. So that's what I got right there. Like I said, it's kind of messy right now. I might make some changes here, but at the same time, I penciled it in, guys. I can't erase it. I didn't even pencil it. I penned it. It's there.
I know I pinned mine
Done.
too, so I can't change it. I can't scratch it out. But
Yeah.
no, that is very interesting though.
The Memphis
Very
Purdue game, though, that's one that I'm excited to watch, and it's in Columbus. So I would even think about like
Are you gonna go?
making the drive down. I might, dude. I might if
Get a little,
if I don't have to
can you
work
get a
that
little
day.
get a little baseline podcast action on the Instagram?
Maybe we'll see Johnny Gaunt and Aaron Lynn.
Yeah, that is true. Maybe they're covering it. We're not there yet. No. So let's see. I think that's up to Josh, right? Are you leading the Midwest, right?
I'll lead the Midwest, yeah,
Yes.
because this is another one that's all messy just because of the seedings, as we've already said. But Houston getting by Auburn here, Miami getting by IU. I got Xavier getting by Pitt, and Texas A&M Texas. I think is going to be an exciting matchup, but I got Texas edging them out here. So those are the Sweet 16. Then I'm not as high on Houston as most. So I got like I was saying earlier, Miami I think could be a dark horse. I got Miami defeating Houston here. And then I think Xavier, their lack of defensive play could catch up with them here. And I got Texas getting by them. And then in that Texas-Miami matchup, I'm rolling with Texas here to get to the Final Four.
Ooh, it's my turn. Sorry, I was yawning. It's only like almost midnight. No, this is interesting for me too, because I didn't know really where to go. And I actually want to surprise probably everyone here. Houston, I got beating Auburn. Then I think it's going to be close. I have Miami beating Indiana. Again, I think at this point, Indiana's depth is concerning for me. So I think Miami will take it there. I have Xavier beating Pitt. I just think Xavier's offense is just, they could shoot from, literally could be in the stands and they could shoot it from there. And then I have Texas beating Penn State. Penn State's done great this year, but they just don't have the talent to keep up with Texas. And then I have Houston beating Miami. Kind of what you said, Josh. I was going each way, but I just think Houston, I love, especially if they're healthy, they are a fun team to watch. And I really think they're going to be good. Brings you back to those old Houston teams. And then I have Xavier beating Texas. I know their defense isn't where it should be and probably where it needs to be. But as I was saying, defense wins you championships. Sometimes just out shooting the opponent also wins championships. And so if Xavier can get up enough shots and get up early, maybe get a 10-point, 15-point lead and just somehow maintain that, whether it's 6 or 7 points, I think Xavier could slip one out here. As much as I was high on Houston, I actually have an upset here, and I regret this now that I'm thinking about it, but I have Xavier going to the Final Four, and I know, Joe, you'd be very happy about that.
There we go.
But I don't know at the end of the day if it will happen, but I just think Xavier's shooting ability, if they catch fire, as we've seen in this tournament for many years, Davidson was an example, some of these other teams, if you catch fire at the right time, you can win a lot of games in the tournament, and I think this team that could do it. So that's who I got.
So proud of you. I don't know if I can go the same route, but we'll get to the picks here real quick. I actually have Auburn beating Houston, and again, this is more to do with Marcus Sasser's injury. I don't know if I knew he was fully healthy, I'd probably go Houston here, but I knew I was going to have them lose the next round, so I guess we'll get to that here too in a second. But I just thought it wasn't that big of a risk for my bracket. I have Miami beating Kent State in my second round matchup. Really like Miami out of this bracket, like you guys have said. I think they're pretty talented, and no matter who they play second round, I think they move on. Xavier beating Iowa State. That offense will still roll. I think it'll be really good for the first weekend. We'll see if that can keep up. I don't think the lack of depth or the defense hurts them quite yet. And then in that rivalry game, Texas A&M, I have Texas. They've been really good. They beat Kansas a couple times down the stretch. They've had a lot to deal with the Chris Beard being fired, having Rodney Terry step in as head coach, but it seems like they've really kind of gelled together. So I'm going Texas in that game. I have Miami beating Auburn in a battle of football schools, at least in my opinion. And then,
geez, football's a stretch.
Right now, football is a stretch. You're right, absolutely. And then I have Texas over Xavier. I wish Xavier still had Zach Freemantle healthy. He got hurt, in January, so they played well without him, and they've done fine. But they really play 7 players, and the defense kind of scares me. And I think Texas is a team that can exploit that. They have Marcus Carr, they have Tyrese Hunter, they have a couple guards.
I agree. I just think I'm just crazy. I'm just crazy. That's
no. I hope you're right more than anything. But but I'll go Texas, and then I have Texas beating Miami in the battle of football schools that aren't exactly quite where they should be. So again,
I've realized that most of my picks, if I at least most of these teams win the first couple rounds, I'm fine. It's if like some of these teams if Xavier gets beat in the first round or second round, it's just it's over. I'm done. But that's what's fun. Josh, what do you got?
Out of the West now.
Midwest. Did you do?
I've already given my Midwest.
Oh, you did. Sorry. Oh wait, I'm the West.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm leading the West. I'm sorry.
You're gonna lead West. All right.
I will lead the West. Yes. I have Kansas beating Illinois. I honestly think this could be a 30-point blowout, and I'm not kidding when I say that. I literally think Kansas could win by 30 points. Whether Bill Self is healthy or not, I still think they're going to win by 30 points. Their offense is amazing. Their defense is pretty solid as well. Like they're just a good team. The classic Kansas team. I have Iona beating St. Mary's. Yes, I might be the only one that has this, but I have Rick Pitino. I just think St. Mary's, as I said, they're a one-win wonder. Like they win one game and then they just flail out. So I'm going to go Iona here. I think they're talented enough to do it. And I think they're competitive enough to do it as well. I have TCU beating Gonzaga. Why? Because every time I freaking picked Gonzaga over the last 5 years, they just screw me over. So that's probably my main reason, because literally I've had them in the Final Four for the last 6 or 7 years, and it's just nope. So I didn't learn my lesson. So, and this year they'll probably go to the Final Four. So you never know. But I have TCU beating Gonzaga. I think even without their center, I loved the way they played against Kansas. I love the way they played against Texas, against some of these bigger schools that are more dominant than them. But just TCU in general, the way the school is with the football program and now the basketball program, it's really cool to see. So TCU, I have them winning. I have UCLA beating Northwestern. Hats off to Northwestern, but you ain't beating UCLA. But then I have Kansas beating Iona. I think this is where Rick Pitino kind of bids his farewell to Iona and goes off to St. John's. And I think Kansas wins pretty handily. And then I have, this was the dumbest pick I've had in my whole bracket, because after everyone's talking about TCU, I was like, well, it's not that bad. Now I think about it, it's terrible. But I have TCU beating UCLA, and really I have no reason why. I just have this gut feeling, and it could be wrong. I was thinking about do I finish writing TCU in? My gut was telling me so. So then I have, but
I'm all about gut feeling picks.
Then I have Kansas coming out against TCU, going to the Final Four. So that is my West. Joe, go.
All right, so I have Kansas over Arkansas. I think it could be a close game. As I mentioned, Arkansas has talent to keep up with Kansas. It just hasn't come together. But Musselman is a good coach in March. We'll see if he can put it together for this game. In the next game, I have UConn over St. Mary's. Like I said, the metrics pan out for UConn. I'm not really that big of a believer in them, but I also don't think St. Mary's is that great this year. So I'll go UConn there. I'll go TCU over Gonzaga as well. I really like TCU this year. Mike Miles is a really good player, and even though they lost their center Eddie Lampkin, I think they'll be fine. He's I mean, traditional centers these days don't always play 30 minutes a game. They can find guys to step in for him. And Gonzaga, just the defense isn't there for them either. So I think they can find a way to beat Gonzaga. UCLA over Northwestern. I think Northwestern's had a good season, but again, this is just hitting above their pay grade a little bit. Just talent level isn't there, which brings me to Kansas over UConn. Bill Self, when he's a 1 seed, I think it's 7 out of 9 times he makes the Elite Eight. I'll roll with that math every day if you got someone like Kansas.
100%.
Grady Dick's great. Jalen Wilson's great. I think they can make an Elite Eight. UCLA TCU, I did think about this one a lot because UCLA's third leading scorer, Jalen Wright, got hurt 2 weeks ago. He's one of the best perimeter defenders in the country as well. So I really did think about it, but then I thought about, TCU lost their center. UCLA lost their third leading scorer. I want UCLA. I can be easily convinced it's TCU. So no shame there, Ben. I think it's not a bad pick whatsoever. But then I had to go Kansas because of the same reason. I didn't really like any of the teams out of the bottom of the bracket. So I went Kansas. Again, they've had the most quad 1 wins, whether we agree with that system or quadrant wins or whatever. They had the most of them. They played a really tough schedule, Big 12. They got shooters in Grady Dick. They got and Jalen Wilson as well. They got guards and DeJuan Harris who've been there before. I think they can make another Final Four back-to-back years, which is not easy to do.
No. Josh, what do you got?
So Kansas over Arkansas. I'm high on Kansas as well. I'm gonna have them going a decent run. My VCU Iona matchup, I got VCU winning, so I think we each had someone different coming out of that. So, three different teams right here. Three different picks. Man, you guys got me wanting to pick TCU over Gonzaga now too, but give me Drew Timme for one more year to lead Gonzaga.
That man's been playing there for 10 years.
He's been playing there for a decade,
Literally.
yeah. And
he looks like someone that drives a white van. He looks like someone that drives a white van. That's what he looks like.
Well, we got Zags going Sweet 16. I think usually that's about how far they can get, and after that, it's just kind of like dead. UCLA over Northwestern, and then I'm also sticking with UCLA to defeat Gonzaga. Kansas over VCU easily. This Kansas UCLA game, I'm super excited, guys. I think you got some great guard play here with Tiger Campbell and Jimmy Jaquez.
A classic
versus Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson, as Joe already said. Premier guard matchup here. I'm giving the edge to UCLA here. It's going to be some really good defensive play here, but give me UCLA at the end of the day to be my last Final Four team here.
So now we have the Final Four teams for all of us. We'll just quickly just say them real quick who we have, and then we will discuss who we think is going to be the national championship game and then who's going to win it all. So I'll start. I have Xavier out of the Midwest. I have Kansas out of the West, Purdue out of the East, and Arizona out of the South. Joe, who do you got?
I have Alabama out of the South. I have Texas out of the Midwest. I have Kansas out of the West and Kansas State out of the East.
And Josh, who do you got?
Got Bama out of the South, Texas out of the Midwest, UCLA out of the West, and Tennessee out of the East.
That is our Final Four matchups. We'll start with Joe. Go ahead and start with the left side of the bracket. So your left side matchup, and then discuss who's going to win that matchup and go to the national title. And then also discuss your right side. Start with the left, discuss your right, and then who'll be in the national title, and then give us your winner.
Got it. All right. So Alabama over Kansas State for me. Again, I really didn't like the East region. Alabama, I do think they're the most talented team, but it really does. It scares me because I think they're going to get to a game where they rely on Brandon Miller too much, or that he just doesn't have it and they don't know where else to go. Or they get
to a game when he's actually arrested and then they have then they have nothing.
That would be the storyline of the tournament history. Jesus. But
that'd be crazy.
I could see them also putting up a bunch of threes one game and just missing, because that's how Nate Oates coaches. And that does scare me, but they're also good defensively. So I'll take them to go to the championship game. And again, I think this one's more about matchup too. I think I don't know if I could pick Kansas State to go to the final. They're a team that's good enough to get to Final Four, maybe because of the region. I don't know if they're good.
It's not a Wisconsin a few years ago. It's not a Wisconsin with Sam Decker. It's not like one of those here. Okay.
No. And then I got Texas and Kansas. I'm going Texas over Kansas. Like I said, hard to repeat in any sport, but college basketball, with how many changing parts there are, very hard to repeat. Texas has beaten them 2 out of 3 times. One of them was neutral floor in the Big 12 tournament. Rodney Terry, they've really rallied around him as an interim coach. It's been good to see. And they had talent beforehand, so I'm still going to believe in them. Marcus Carr, Tyrese Hunter, I think they're a really good combo in the backcourt. Which brings me to the Alabama-Texas National Championship.
Oh, that sounds terrible. It sounds like a football game. Gee.
The football schools, the 2009 BCS Championship. And I'm going Texas over Alabama. They get their revenge for the Colt McCoy shoulder injury all those years ago. The 3-pointers are going to kill me here, but I would like to see Alabama not rely on the 3 so much, to not have the distractions off the court. That would just be great, but they do have that. That's what they're rolling with. Texas have come through. They also have their off the court issues with their coach being fired, but they've come together. They've played really well. They've got good guard play. They say that March is about the guard play, right? And I think Texas might have some of the best guard play in the country, because they have Marcus Carr, they have Tyrese Hunter. And a lot of these teams, we're seeing I think the All-American games came out today, and there was 2 guards on the top 2 teams. That's never happened. Usually it's 4 guards on the team, on the first team, and 3 guards on the second team. I'm gonna roll with the guards. It'll probably be totally wrong, me picking Texas to win the championship, but I'm gonna go with it. I think it's fun.
I love it.
It is a fun one, yeah. I was tempted to do that too, Joe. It's just how it'd be a great story, I guess, with Terry taking over midseason. But I like what Texas has done, rallying around since Chris Beard got fired. But I guess that's just kind of where I flip over to UCLA and be like, okay, they've been stable this whole time. It is going to be a heck of a guard matchup, though. Those guys that you just mentioned from Texas, like Tyrese Hunter, going against the guys I mentioned from UCLA. I got UCLA winning the game, though. Bama versus Tennessee. This is probably the third or fourth time that they'll play this year. Give me Bama once again. Brandon Miller leading the way. Tennessee. Now that I know that, they've been relying on them on defense this whole time. They're not going to be able to score enough in this game to keep up with Bama. Then we got a Bama UCLA national championship game, and give me UCLA. It's been a while since they've been able to win one, but I love the job that Mick Cronin's done, the guys that he's brought in. So give me UCLA.
That is awesome and crazy. And there's a saying that there's not many ones that really make it to the
It's only
Final
been one
Four.
time that all 4 ones have made it.
Yeah, or even to the national title. Well, because I'm just the most basic dude ever, I decided that would be me, and I would just decide to go, which I hate myself for, because I know that's not going to happen. But I have Purdue being Arizona. I just, at the end of the day, for me, Purdue, and I know not everyone's high on Purdue. I've just always said they're a sneaky team, because if they stay out of foul trouble and they stay healthy, who are you going to put to stop a 7'4" monster? Like, I don't care if he's 6'11". I mean, Ohio State tried that with Akpara, who's 6'11", 240, 250, and he was getting bodied around like he was a little child, right? Like, so that's for me the interesting part, and I think it's going to be, for me, what happens during that game, right? I think Arizona is talented enough up front, but can these guys defend a 7'4", 300-pound behemoth? And if they can't, then I think Purdue wins this fairly easy. And as you said, the guards, being freshmen, what a better way to challenge yourself as a freshman guard, as a 19-year-old, than to play in the biggest stage you can. And I think these guys will step up big and win this ball game. And then I have Kansas over Xavier. I'm sorry, Joe. I've given Xavier as far as I could go before I just realized that I believe in Kansas. I didn't believe him in last year. I don't even think I have him in my Final Four last year. I can't remember, which is very depressing, because I think they are I've always a very good coach team. Bill Self, you can't count them out. And I just think Kansas is going to beat Xavier. I think it's going to be a game that is just, Xavier's going to run out of steam, and Kansas is going to be there for the taking. So I have Purdue versus Kansas, and I have Kansas winning the national title. I just think that at this point, Purdue might be, with only playing really 8 guys, they might be at their last leg. Whereas with Kansas, it seems like they pull someone out of like the wastebasket that just ends up coming in and playing well. So I have Kansas winning it all.
Kansas to repeat.
And I know it doesn't happen, and I might be completely wrong. I think I will say one guarantee. I do believe Kansas will get to the Final Four. I don't know if they'll repeat, but I do believe they're going to get to the Final Four. And that's about the only guarantee I can give. The other guarantee I can give is that all 3 of us might be totally wrong. And I know my mother will have a better bracket than me. I know my wife will probably have a better bracket than me. That's just what happens every year, because it's just that depressing. But no, that is what I think it is. So fellas, how would you rate all of our brackets? Joe, start. How would you rate all of our brackets here?
Oh boy, I hate it. I hate them all, because I think this is the toughest year. I think I'm giving everyone Fs until proven otherwise.
I love it.
For a couple of reasons. This college basketball season has been crazy. We've seen upsets. There's not like a dominant team. Alabama's the most talented, but not like a dominant team. We also, one thing I hate about my bracket, I noticed your guys' too, but you guys don't have to hate it if you don't want to. There's been like a 7 seed in the Final Four for almost every year since 2012.
It's just hard to pick that one, because if you pick the wrong one, they could lose in the first round, and those are the picks that are like toughest to like make. So I'll usually get like a couple of those lower seeds to get to like Sweet 16. We all so I can get some of the points, and then that's as far as I'll go. But yeah. You're right.
No,
I hate that too.
But you can't pick it, because you pick the wrong 7 seed, and another 7 seed or 8 seed goes, then it ruins the bracket. So
right.
I think any of our brackets could happen. Don't get me wrong. I think it's all about making sure you keep some of your Final Four teams alive past the first weekend. Your champion alive to the Final Four at least. It's all about the numbers.
Do you ever, like, I sweat when I look at the little score thing when you're watching one game, the little score things coming across. I'm like, frick, they lost. Dang it. They lost. Son of a, like, all these different, like, it's just like, there's my bracket. And it's so funny, because here in Hungary, they're like, bracket? What is a bracket? They're like so confused. But no, it's fascinating to me, because it's like, who would have thought that all these years ago when they started doing this, that it would become this like phenomenon of like in your family, who's got the best bracket. And I'm not kidding you. I'm pretty sure, I think my mom has won a few times, and my dad will claim he's won every year, but as Josh has met my dad on the podcast, he's full of it sometimes. So I'm just saying, I think the best part about this is that you get to come in, just have a fun time with it. And I don't think there's gonna be a 1-1 matchup in the national title game, but it's fun to think about it. So I'm excited to see what happens. Josh, are there any final things you would like to talk about on the podcast for the day, or are we saying toodaloo?
Well, I know we took up a lot of time. I don't want to keep Joe here too long, but we got to ask him one NFL draft question, since this is, I guess, the most debate me and Ben have had in NFL draft talk lately. Rank these 5 wide receivers, Joe, 1 through 5.
Stop it.
Quentin Johnson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jalen Hyatt, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. How are you ranking those guys?
Don't do this.
What order should they come off the board?
All right. Where are they coming off the board in my personal rankings? What do you think?
So rank them 1 through 5. I know, like, based on team need, like someone might draft a more of a slot guy,
but
than
like 1
an
through
X
5
guy. But
like
rank
best,
them 1 through 5
right.
in your opinion.
I think Quentin Johnston 1, Jackson Smith-Njigba 2. Who were the other 3 you said?
Jalen Hyatt, Zay Flowers, and Jordan Addison.
I have Zay Flowers 3, Jordan Addison 4, and Jalen Hyatt 5.
I think Ben's disappointed that you didn't put his guy at 1, but I guess I'm a little surprised about Hyatt at 5. It's just like the limited route tree that he has, or just the one hit wonder season he had. Really one hit wonder game, you could argue even.
Yeah, it's just he's just a burner, and if that's what you want, that's great. But we saw like his time at the combine; he's a 4.4 guy, and that's impressive. Don't get me wrong, that's a really good time. It's impressive, but like, it's not like a John Ross time. And John Ross, we know how that worked out in the NFL. But but like he doesn't run too many routes. He's not a run after the catch type of guy. A lot of the times Tennessee schemes the receivers open, which is not something you can always do in the NFL. So Hyatt at 5 was more about like love the speed, but that may be all you get from him.
Valid.
All I'm going to say is, first off, he should have never won the Blitnikoff this year. I think everyone could say that who should have won the Blitnikoff. Marvin Harrison. I don't care. Listen, I've said this, and the reason why Jalen Hyatt is frustrating is because he had one good game on national television, but if you watched every single game of Marvin Harrison Jr., it did not matter who he played. He made ridiculous catches, and he then got open. He dropped one pass all year, and like that to me is where I'm comparing. Like, if we're going to say Jalen Hyatt, because he won the Blitnikoff, is better than every other receiver, I'm going, yeah, that's not true. But then again, it is a media thing. But no, for me, I guess the reason why I think Smith-Njigba, I know the injury and he didn't run the 40 and there's a lot of these things, but I know he's a slot, so that always kind of messes with people's rankings. But for me, I look at the fact that when he had Wilson and Olave, and you had Smith-Njigba, the Michigan defensive coordinators and the Oregon defense coordinators were saying the best receiver in that room is Jackson Smith-Njigba. And the only reason I'm saying this, not as a Ohio State fan, I always have to say this because everyone thinks I'm biased. I'm biased because I've seen him a lot play, obviously. But if I look at him against Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, against Hyatt, if I look at these guys, I'm going, who do I want in a tough game situation? What happened in the Rose Bowl? They were literally down both receivers, and they said, okay, Jackson, you have to go win us this game. And he has that it factor. I think his 40 time is probably going to be in the 4.4s-ish. And I think what I would love to see him happen is somehow either the Bears pick him up or somewhere in that range where he can go to a guy that he feels comfortable with or whatever. But I'll be honest with you, Joe, I think Quentin Johnston worries me the same way Hyatt does, in the sense because it was like a 1-year thing. With Jackson Smith-Njigba, his freshman year, he had a decent year. Like, we saw what he could do. We knew what he did in that second year. And then we've also seen what he flashes, obviously, this year when he's injured. But I guess with Quentin Johnston, I have him as one of my top 2 receivers. I just struggle to see him as the guy. And I think it's partly because he played with a quarterback that basically just threw him the ball. Whereas you look at Jackson Smith-Njigba, he was leading the team when he had 2 top 15 picks on that wide receiver core. So I guess that's my thing. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I think that's like where I'm at, I guess, is he's making himself into a better receiver just by the times he's doing at these combines.
Yeah, no, I love them both. Have a first round grade on both. I think you could easily flip the two. They're very close on my scale of grading.
Is it the slot thing though? Is it the slot thing? Is that what do you think a lot of people are going to grade him lower because of the slot thing?
I think the slot and just not seeing him for a full year, like it's yes, he led the team, but I think he's a different type of receiver than like Jamar Chase was when he sat out a whole year too. Like he is a slot. He is a guy who I think
he's not a burner. He's not a burner. He's
not a burner.
He's gonna shifty. He's gonna shifty guy.
Yeah, he's gonna wreck people in the slot, man. That's gonna be great. But I think he's played with good quarterback, and that I think Johnston. I mean, we saw Max Duggan at the combine. He couldn't throw. Oh man, he was in some of these drills where you're supposed to like have easy throws. He couldn't hit anything. So I think that he maybe gets a little bit of a bump because he did have the poor quarterback play, while Jackson Smith and Jigba has played with great ones.
Yeah, and I think too. I'm interested to see. I would love to see him with the Patriots because I think Bill Belichick would do wonders with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I would also love to see him on the Browns because I know he won't go that far, but I would love to see him on the Browns because that would be amazing in the slot. That would just be a lightning ahead. But no, it is interesting. But yes, I'm glad you graded these because now the debate of Josh and I will continue for the next 5 weeks.
It will. I got Quentin, and the only reason I don't have Jackson 1, Joe, I mean, people will bring up the fact that, like you said, Jamar Chase sat out his season and was still picked 5, but to me, Jackson, most of the time he was getting open 2 years ago was when you had to worry about Olave and Wilson, respect them deep, open up the middle of the field, all the easy slants. He's catching those. In the Rose Bowl against Utah, he's going against backup wide receivers that are playing secondary for Utah because of all the guys that hit the portal, were injured, or went to the draft. So we saw Jackson like dominate in like those circumstances. But if he's going to be the main guy, I didn't get to see it this year. And that's not to say that he can't. It's just I haven't seen it. So I've seen Quentin Johnston do it, and so I believe in him a little bit more.
Well, let me put it this way, too. I do think Jackson Smith and Jigba is the safest pick for this draft. I think you're going to get a guy who's going to be a good football player for a long time. Quentin Johnston, I do think there's more variation with him, right? Like he's a good player. He's kind of measured in shorter than we thought at the combine. He played in an offense where the quarterback couldn't always get him the ball just by his accuracy issues. There's a little bit more question mark with him, even though he did play the last couple of years and Smith and Jigba did sit out. But I think a team, if you take Jackson Smith and Jigba, put him in the slot, I think he's going to have a fantastic career. I think the floor is way higher than anyone else in this class.
And Ben mentioned he'd love to see him with the Patriots. I would too. That's where I got him mocked right now, is going, I think, 14 in New England. Just the way that we've seen Bill, I guess, use guys like Julian Edelman and Wes Welker. And it's like, oh man, imagine Jackson Smith and Jigba in that offense in that kind of a role. It'd be fun to watch.
I hope they do, man. They've been neglecting the wide receiver position. And anytime they take one, they always take one of these like bigger outside receivers like N'Keal Harry. And, that doesn't always work. So I hope they take him because he would be a really good fit for what they need. They need a wide receiver like Smith and Jigba who's going to be really quarterback friendly if they're going to keep on sticking with Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi, whoever they end up going with. They need to get that offense flowing with someone. And it can't be the receivers they have. And they just lost Jacoby Myers in free agency. So they definitely need to take wide receiver.
I agree. Josh, any other further comments?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Joe, for joining us. Drop in all of your knowledge and wisdom on college basketball, NFL draft stuff. Always appreciated.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Joe, would you also like to drop your Twitter and stuff for people, Instagram, anything like that you want people to be able to follow your craziness that you do for the next month and a half?
Absolutely. You can find my articles on thegamehouse.com, but I'm at DiTullio Joe. You'll have to look up how to spell that, but at DiTullio Joe, it just spells just like it sounds on most places, Instagram, Twitter. You can find me.
Awesome. And thank you again, Joe, for coming on. And if all of you loved what Joe is giving, go ahead and give us a thumbs up and a subscribe on YouTube. Let us know that you're loving it. Again, comment below who the best looking guy in this trio is. Ooh. We know it's not Josh. All right. We come to that fact every time.
I was going to say Josh, but yeah. Okay.
But no, it's not because he's buff and that's just ugly at this stage. I'm kidding. I'm not shaming. Sorry, Josh. I'm not shaming you. No. No, Josh could probably bend me twice over with his left arm. So anyways, moving on. No, thank you so much for you guys listening and watching, especially, but also that our Spotify and our Apple podcast, it's been growing. Our numbers have been growing. So if you do, please make sure you give us a nice rating on there and then share it with your friends and family. You know, maybe you have a grandpa that only likes to listen to radio. Hey, these faces are made for radio. I mean, they are made for radio. Josh and I used to say that joke all the time when we did radio. And then from there, if you'd also go ahead and let us know in the comments, either of the video or just DM us or whatever, let us know what you want to be talking about leading up to the draft. What would you like us to focus on? Would you like us to focus on positions or vice versa? What would you like us to see? We can definitely try to do that in the near future. But once again, we want to thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, we'll see ya.